Hey guys, how's it going? This is probably the 8th time I've tried to record this. This is probably my least favorite thing to do. I would rather record the kiddos or Shad and I leading worship or maybe a part of the sermon, but I don't love necessarily being in front of the camera, being recorded, seeing my face. For sure, I'd much rather hide a little bit, but I just felt something pretty strongly today that I needed to share. And I know many of you, like me, listened to what the governor had to say today, and I know there's a sense of discouragement on a lot of you right now, a sense of unsurety, not knowing what's next, kind of being left empty-handed, not sure what you're doing and why you're doing it. And I've just been praying, and I keep feeling this thought, and that is, do we have faith to walk around Jericho the 7th time? And do we have faith to dip in the Jordan River the 7th time? And both of those scriptures are found in the Old Testament, and it's the story about Naaman going to the Jordan River, being told, jump in the 7th time. And I think, what if he had stopped at the 6th? And then the Israelites, when they're walking around the Jericho, they're told, do this 7 times, and then give me a huge shout of praise. Praise my name. And I think to myself, what if they had just stopped at the 6th time? What if they hadn't lifted up a praise? What if they hadn't done a shout? And they would have stopped just that short of the miracle that God had for them. And I know a lot of you are discouraged. And I know that you're in a place of not really being sure. I know some of you aren't. And you're having a wonderful time with your family. And that's awesome. And that's amazing. But part of the piece of this journey of faith and this walk we have with the Lord is we don't always know the end. We don't always know exactly what's going to happen, but we know that we're called to a life of obedience, a life of honoring Him, and sometimes it's not seeing the end result, but it's still having faith to go in the river the 7th time, to walk around the walls the 7th time. And I was thinking about 2 scriptures that are actually in Kings, and one of them is a story that is Elisha, and he's sick, and he's actually getting ready to die, and the king comes to him. And so Elisha tells this king this, which the way God does things is just so mind-blowing. It's always different for everybody, but there's a similar theme in all of it. And so he tells the king, this is Elisha talking to King Joash, put your hand on the bow. So he put his hand on it. And Elisha put his hands on the king's hand. And he said, open the east window. And he opened it. Then Elisha said, shoot. And he shot. And he said, the arrow of the Lord's deliverance and the arrow of deliverance from Syria, for you must strike the Syrians at Aphek until you have destroyed them. Then he said, take the arrows. So he took them, and he said to the king of Israel, strike the ground. So he struck 3 times and stopped. This is where it gets interesting. He's done everything that was asked of him. And the man of God was angry with him and said, you should have struck 5 or 6 times. Then you would have struck Syria till you had destroyed it. But now you will strike Syria only 3 times. God didn't tell him how many times to strike the ground. He didn't. He just said, strike the ground. So he's like, I'm doing it in obedience. I'm going to strike the ground. He did everything the prophet said, but he stopped short in his faith. He didn't keep going. He didn't keep pressing on. He didn't keep saying, I'm going to, I don't know. I imagine myself just taking that arrow and over hitting the ground until the prophet said, just stop. Enough already. And I wonder, in this season, are we at that place where we've gone thus far and we trusted this far, but now we're at a place of, I don't know. What's next? What am I going to do? And there's another story that is almost the exact opposite of this. And it has to do with the widow. Cool stories. I love these. A certain woman of the wives of the sons of a prophet cried out to Elisha, saying, your servant, my husband, is dead, and you know that your servant feared the Lord, and his creditor is coming to take my 2 sons to be his slaves. She was in a moment of desperation. Both of these people were, actually. They came to Elisha. They had a need. They knew Elisha was a prophet of God, so they were really going to the Lord with their need. And so Elisha tells her to go and gather pots. He goes, get as many as you can. Go to your neighbors, borrow for them. And this widow had enough faith so I can, again, just see myself going, hey, you got any pots? Hey, the prophet of God's at my house. Hey, we're interceding with the Lord. And I want as much as I can. I want to be full. I want to have as much as God is willing to give me. And so she brought these pots back, and the prophet began filling them. And again, she didn't know what was going to happen. All she knew is that she had an opportunity to see God move. An opportunity to see a blessing, and so she gathered as much as she possibly could, and God continued to fill. So, question, are we that person who can say, I'm going to walk around the wall the 7th time? I'm going to dip myself in the Jordan the 7th time. And then in the process, are we going to pick up that arrow and say, I'm only going this far. I'm only trusting for this much. Are we going to be like the widow who says, as much as I can have from you, God, as much as you want to do for me? Can we intercede to receive from the Lord as much as he's willing to give? Because trust me, in this season, he wants to pour out on us a way that we've never understood, to give us trust, to give us faith. And it's not to say the days aren't difficult. It's not to say there aren't times that I miss you guys desperately and just want to hug you and come over to your house and have coffee with you and all those things. But we're in a season of dramatic obedience, and we're in a season that we may not understand the fruit of what we're doing. But I truly believe if we keep our hearts right before the Lord, and if we come with the heart of the widow and say, God, as much as you have for me, I'm going to intercede. I'm going to walk around the wall the 7th time, and I'm going to dip myself in the Jordan the 7th time until I see your miracle. So church, let's be about doing it the 7th time. Let's be about gathering as much as we can this season so that God can pour his spirit out on us. He can fill us to an abundance. If you continue to read the story of the widow, she had more than enough to pay off her creditors and more than enough for them to eat because she knew the faithfulness of God. The king stopped short. The widow didn't. Let's be like the widow. We're going to press in. We're going to be obedient. We're going to be faithful in this season. And we're going to beat the ground, fill the pots, and intercede that we would be the people of faith that said, nothing's stopping me from the promise. Nothing's keeping me back from doing what God's asked me to do and to learn and to grow and to change. So Father, I ask, I know some of my friends are hurting. And I know they don't understand, and I know they don't know what's next. But God, we are trusting you in this season. We are walking in obedience. And Father, we are gathering the pots of oil that you would fill us so full, that we would be so obedient. God, let us see your promised land. God, let us be people who love you well, who share your faithfulness, love each other well. And God, I'm just going to take the arrow and beat on the ground as many times as it takes for you to say, I'm going to intercede on your behalf. Father, intercede on the behalf of your church. Love your church well. Love your people well. Let us be people who exemplify faith in this time and people who exemplify abundance in this time. We just trust you. We love you. We're so humbled that you love us so well even in this season. Amen. We pray. Love you guys.